Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we're here to answer the question, who gave these kuffars the right to speak? By the way, if you're not familiar with the term kuffar, it means the vast majority of the population of this country, those of us who are not Muslim. Well, the answer to that question is very simple. We did. We gave ourselves the right to speak freely on any subject of our choosing. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, is the fundamental right of free men and women everywhere. The right that underpins all of our other rights and freedoms. We won that right after more than 400 years of struggle against religious persecution and intolerance. Our ancestors suffered and died in search of that freedom, burnt at the stake or swinging from the gallows. They died for the right to criticise religion and to hold and to freely express their knowledge and beliefs. Ever since the 1960s, that right has been protected by international law, by the European Convention on Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, both treaties that are binding on the British government. But the Islamists and their allies in our universities and even the government itself seem unaware of that fact. Now, I'm not going to suggest that there are no limits to freedom of expression. There are. Unlike freedom of belief, freedom of expression does have limits, and they are very clearly set out in international law. Governments have an obligation to legislate against hate speech, against speech or writing that incites hatred or violence. And as anyone who remembers the Holocaust or the genocide in Rwanda will tell you, those limits are absolutely necessary. But successive British governments have gone far beyond what is necessary to prevent hate speech. They have seen fit to criminalise any speech which might be expected to cause alarm or distress to anyone listening, and that anyone might of course include Islamic extremists. So rather than legislating to protect the public from the reactions of violent extremists, they have turned the preservation of public order on its head by putting the fear of the reactions of the extremists above the rights of everyone else to express their views. Well, here goes. Are there any Islamists here today? If so, I suggest you complain to those police officers over there, because I'm going to say something that is very likely to cause you distress. You have absolutely no justification for attempting to limit our freedom of expression, including the freedom to criticise Islam. Many practices sanctioned by Sharia law are primitive and barbaric by modern standards, such as the stoning of women for adultery, the cutting off of hands and feet in punishment, and the built-in inequality between men and women, and between Muslims and non-Muslims, and we have the right to say so. You may claim that Sharia law must take precedence over democratic law because it is dictated by God. But why should your God's wishes take precedence over the wishes of people who reject both him and his wishes? And what I'm going to say now may distress you even more. You have no justification for believing the Quran contains final guidance from God. Do you know why? Do you know that the modern, independent research has shown that many passages in the Quran have been misinterpreted? Because the words used were not Arabic but Syriac, the lingua franca in the Middle East at the time the Quran were written. Did you know that the promise of 72 virgins to any young man who dies in jihad is a mistranslation from the Syriac and actually refers to 72 pieces of ripe fruit? I am sure that many people here will have things to say about freedom of expression that could cause anxiety or distress to some people. If so, it is possible that some of us might be charged with an offence under the Public Order Act. So be it. But I'll tell you this, if any such case ever comes to court, we will fight it, all the way to the European Court of Human Rights if necessary, and we will win. We will win because the government, terrified of upsetting the extremists in our midst, has adopted legislation that is illegal under international law. My friends, the right to freedom of expression is the right that sets us apart from the world's dictatorships, theocracies and thugs. We must fight, and fight again to protect that freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger Farrington from Sheffield Humanist Society. Thank you. Now,